blown around in that awful weather. Hooray! Hooray! You can sit up in bed! What a good A-class bed this is. Hello, I'm Peter Vaughan, and today I'm at the Irvine Heimer Centre Travel World at Stafford to look at the very latest model from Carado. Part of the Irvine Heimer stable, of course. But it's not one of these, because this is how they used to look. Have a good look, because, well, not the prettiest of A-class motorhomes, are they? But for 2022, they've changed all that. And this is the new one, the 2022 season I338 Edition15. We'll come on to what the Edition 15 bit means in a minute, but doesn't it look, well, I think it looks exactly 1,000,000 times better than the old one. Got these new LED headlights, this new very automotive grille that doesn't shout Carado too loudly. A lot of A-class motorhomes like Heimers tend to emblazon their name across the front so that everybody knows what you're driving. This one's a bit more subtle, and I quite like that. Yeah, it does look a lot more modern, a lot more premium. Thanks for the boot. A lot more premium, maybe a bit less entry level, because Carado, of course, is from the Heimer group. In fact, it's Heimer's budget brand, but it doesn't want to look too budget, does it? And what do you get with an I338? Well, this is a 7-metre, 3.5-tonne motorhome with twin beds at the back. Very popular German style of motorhome. Now, A-classes tend to be expensive, don't they? Tend to be at least 10 grand or so more than an equivalent low profile. So, in 2022, when prices seem to have shot up, how much would you pay for a van like this? Well, this Heimer BMLI 890, it's a big old bus, isn't it? And it looks very special. But it's £143,000. This white line model might be a bit more within your budget, but it's not brand new, it's on a 70 plate, and it's still effectively 100 grand. And back to our Carado I338, and probably you're now thinking, well, shall I bother to watch any more? Because obviously I can't afford a German A-class motorhome. They're way out of my price range. Well, hang on a minute, because this, as you see it here, brand new, is 72 grand. I think that sounds pretty tempting in a time when a lot of ordinary low-profile motorhomes have a 7 at the front. Even some van conversions are getting onto that sort of price range. 72 grand for German A-class? This certainly needs a bit more investigation. It's not even as if this looks like a really Spartan back-to-basics model. Because it's an Edition 15, you get lots of extra kit. In fact, Carado say you get about £3,000 worth of saving against buying a standard i338 and loading it up with the options that this one has as standard. Now, Edition 15, annoyingly, without a gap between the Edition and the 15, just to upset magazine-y types like me who like grammar and punctuation and stuff like that. But hey, don't let Carado's loss of a little gap put you off, because this is quite a nice-looking motorhome, isn't it? It's got flush-fitting habitation windows. That's one of the Edition 15 extras, as are the 16-inch alloy wheels, and over on the other side, the roll-out awning, 4.5 metre roll-out awning. You get a second garage door as well, so it's beginning to look like quite a decent spec for your money. Now, before I go in to defrost on this chilly December day, I'll just show you around a few more external details. Firstly, of course, there are these bus-type mirrors with twin lenses. Now, those bottom lenses, the convex ones, are ideal for, well, stop you hitting anything really. They're pretty essential on an A-class motorhome. Moving back, you've got the habitation door on the offside. Of course, you've got a cab door on the passenger or near side as well. Typical for an imported A-class motorhome. Most of them are like this, with habitation door on the offside and, as I say, cab door on the near side. But habitation door is upgraded on the Edition 15, so you get this deep window and you get a fly screen. Looks, again, a lot better, doesn't it, with the window in it. What you don't get, unfortunately, is central locking. If you press the usual Fiat switch, press the button, it locks the cab door and forgets all about this one. Oh well. Right, you've got your usual cassette toilet servicing hatch, then your gas locker here, which holds two 15 kilo cylinders. But they are one behind the other, which will make changing cylinders just that tad more awkward. But at least they're not miles up off the ground. And then, of course, we come to the garage, such an important part of a layout like this. Yes, the garage. It's not exactly mean, is it? This is only a 7-metre motorhome, but, well, a metre at floor level is garage space. You've got headroom in here of 1.18 metres, so plenty for your bikes. Just the one little light, but you've also got a main socket above that. You've got these adjustable tie downs, so keep everything nice and secure so it doesn't all rattle about. Small items, well, they can go on these shelves. And of course you've got that second loading door as well. Doesn't go down quite to floor level like the offside one does, but it does mean you can get at your stuff nice and easily. So really good size garage. And also, because this van isn't huge and it isn't loaded up with every option known to man, it's got a reasonable payload on a 3.5 ton chassis, 481 kilos before you add any options. One option you might want to add, though, is a spare wheel, because, well, you don't get one as standard. You get a fix and go kit, which might not always get you going again. So, well, at least you've got plenty of room to keep a spare wheel in here. There's not much to show you at the back, apart from that it does tell you it's an Edition 15. But one thing that you could note is that these corner sections are actually separate. And these are the ones you're most likely to damage when you're manoeuvring. And oh, I've just hit that post. Well, it'll save you a lot of money if you only have to replace that little section rather than a whole back panel. That's a good little feature, isn't it? Last, it's time to come inside, out of the cold and into this lovely warm van, because I've had the heating. It's the Truma Combi 6, so the more powerful combi heater, and it's gas and electric, and it's got the van nice and toasty warm on its mains electric setting. Now, coming into the warm, as I say, and there's this little seat just inside the door where I can pop myself down and slip my shoes off. And Carado have even thought about the fact that you don't want to ruin your carpets, and this little section just inside the door, there is a section of carpet for it, but it's separately removable, so when the weather's wintry or just wet, you can leave that bit out and you come into a bit of vinyl floor, take your shoes off, and there's even a little cupboard down here to pop them away. And then you can hang your coat as well. And of course, check that your hair hasn't got too blown around in that awful weather. Right, time to get comfortable. And there's room to get comfortable in this motorhome because it's an A-Class and it feels that much bigger with this wide cab and the panoramic windscreen and all this glass around the front. It does make a big difference compared with a low profile. Of course, it's not a particularly big lounge, and it hasn't followed the latest trend for these side-facing settees. It has rear travel seats permanently in situ in the form of a half dinette. So if you're going to use travel seats in the back all the time and carrying passengers on a really regular basis, this is probably a better layout. It's also got this little side seat, which I found useful when I was coming in just to take my shoes off, but actually as somewhere to sit, well, you'd probably have to be the size of Kylie. What it is useful for, though, is when you spin yourself around and you want to maybe just recline a bit and have a little bit of a, maybe a chill. Or slide out the TV, because that comes out over the fridge and, well, you're now in the perfect place to watch it. For dining, you've got this wall-mounted table, which is certainly a decent size for 2 or 3. And then, if you want to extend it, there's no pull-out panel or anything fancy like that, but it does extend nevertheless. You just pull it out and then retrieve a panel from a cupboard at the back of the van. Here's one I prepared earlier, and that simply slots in like that. And now your table's just that little bit bigger, and if you're sitting in this swivel driver's seat, then, well, you can now reach your dinner comfortably and you're not going to drop it in your lap. So the TV I mentioned comes out from above the fridge. You don't actually get the TV itself, even the bracket is an option, but that's included in the 72 grand or thereabouts that I quoted at the beginning. So there's your TV, ideal for watching from the swivel captain's chairs in the cab. Not so ideal when you're trying to get perhaps from the kitchen through into the lounge, but not the worst compromise in the world. Sitting here in the half dinette, well, there's room. Put your back against the wall and get your feet up, and then you've got this, again, this lovely view around the front of the van. You've also got light coming in through that deep window in the door. You've got mid-size roof light above. That's just the simple push-up type rather than the wind-up crank handle type, but hey, you have tried to keep the price down on this vehicle. Not only is this your two-person rear travel seat, but it's suitable for little ones too, because you've got two ISOFIX points on this rear travel seat. That's very unusual as standard on a coach-built motorhome, even in 2022. As I say, it isn't the biggest lounge, but it does feel lovely and spacious. You've got lots of artificial light too. You've got these spotlights under the top cupboard, spotlights set into the base of the cab bed. Nice big ceiling light over the doorway. Yeah, it does feel quite roomy, but because it's an A-Class. Other things to note, well, I do rather like this Nebula upholstery. It's sort of duotone grey, and with a quilted finish for the centre. It's another Edition 15 feature. Another thing I like is the amount of headroom. There's well over 2 metres of headroom in most of the vehicle. You go up a couple of steps into the bedroom at the back, and the lounge floor is slightly raised as well, but that does mean that all the seats are at the same level. You haven't got any awkward legs dangling situation in the lounge area. Just that step from the lounge down into the main floor space. Under the half dinette, you'd probably expect the fresh water tank to be. Well, in this van it isn't. You've got your combi boiler under there, but that does leave some room for storage as well. The fresh water tank itself is inboard, but it's a bit further back under the rear bedroom area. And the freshwater tank is 122 litres, so not only is it a nice winterised position, but it's a good size as well. Another thing that's a good size is the fridge. That's 156 litres, and it's one of these with the separate freezer compartment. But It suits those sitting in the lounge wanting to get an extra cold drink or two better than whoever's busy chefing in the kitchen, because they'll come here and looking for the fillet steak, they have to lean over the top, and well, that's not really quite so ideal, is it? It's a pity it's not one of those lovely newfangled fridges that opens from both sides, but hey, you can't have everything. It is supersized and it's automatic energy selection, so you just switch it on and forget all about it. Above that you've got a very simple control panel and of course your controls for the heating as well. And then finally, before I move on to the kitchen itself, just note you've got a couple of USB ports here, useful for rear passengers charging their phones while they're travelling along. If you've got teenagers, they'll always be charging their phones. So moving back through the vehicle, on the near side you have the kitchen, and it's the typical L-shape arrangement that you see in so many continental motorhomes. Glass covers for the sink and for the 3-burner hob, and you'll notice that this has got a cast iron pan stand, but it's nicely fixed and it seems pretty unlikely ever to rattle. For the UK market, of course, they've added the essential oven and grill, the usual Thetford duplex. The only drawer-based storage is here for your cutlery and utensils. Underneath that is a cupboard that includes a waste bin. Reasonable amount of worktop space in the corner, but not the most accessible area. But then you have got this higher section above the small wardrobe. Now you've got a convenient main socket above that. That'll be great as long as the lead for your kettle or whatever is long enough to come down to this worktop. The only other main socket is this one on the front of the unit next to your gas isolation taps, and I couldn't really see why they put it there, because the lead is going to trail around your cooker. Surely your main socket should be around here somewhere, perhaps next to your USB ports, but yeah, that seems a bit nonsensical to me. Not much bling in this van, but you have got a backlit surround to the kitchen window, so a little bit of style. What Carado tend to do is keep things nice and simple, nice and plain, which you'll either love or not, but the build quality is the thing. Everything feels lovely and solid. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart tomorrow. That's the Carado message. Not bling, lots of lovely durable practicality instead. So the kitchen might not be about to win Motorhome Kitchen of the Year 2022, but there's not much to fault either. You've got the big fridge, you've got an oven, reasonable amount of worktop. Yeah, you've got everything you really need. And then the wardrobe, as I say, under this raised section, well, that you've got plenty of room for shirts, jackets and so on. Not obviously for your ball gown, but decent shirt length wardrobe in there. And then of course on the other side, now if you move up to the bigger Carado A classes at 7.4 metres, you get the usual separate shower on one side and toilet area on the other side of the vehicle. Of course, lose 400 odd millimetres of length and you have to compact things somewhere, and you wouldn't want to lose length in the bedroom. So in this vehicle, in this shorter model, the washroom all goes on one side of the vehicle. There's a reasonable aisle through the van, just gets a tiny bit narrower there, but for most of us it'll be more than adequate. And then let's show you the washroom. So the washroom, what do we think of the washroom? Well, of course it's the usual swivel cassette toilet and loads of room to sit comfortably with loads of shoulder room, lots of leg room. Yeah, it's a decent sized space as a toilet area. Your plastic basin with the big mirror behind, illuminated from above. You've got a roof vent with a little fold down drying rack as well, and then a couple of towel or robe hooks behind me. You've also got this useful cupboard in the corner. It's decent size, and a little shelf below that as well. So as a toilet area, it seems to tick all the boxes. And then when you want to shower, simply press this catch and you've now got a decent size shower cubicle. The wheel arch moulding intrudes. That's a useful little shelf for your shampoos and so on. Your shower head is on a riser bar, and finally there's a little flap on the door that just completes the plastic lining so you haven't got any chance of the woodwork getting wet. There's even a little moulding on the bottom of the door to make sure that no drips manage to find their way out through the bottom of the doorway onto your carpet in the kitchen area. That's a neat little touch. Now, of course, one of the most important aspects of a layout like this is the bedroom itself. And having the washroom just on one side with all the ablutions in one space does mean that it's a more open feel when you're looking either from front to back or back to front. When you sit in the cab seats, you can see right through to the back wall. So the back end of the motorhome isn't completely separated off. Well, so many larger models with end single beds or even an end island bed. So bed sizes are good here. They're 1.87 metres long over on this side, 1.97 metres on the near side, so really long bed on the near side. You don't get wardrobes under the bed, surprisingly. You've seen the little wardrobe adjacent to the kitchen area. So instead, these are just cupboards under the end of the bed. Good size, plenty of room for lots of folded clothes or whatever you want to keep in there. And both cupboards are illuminated as well, which is quite neat. So the bedroom itself, you've got windows on either side. You've got a roof vent above as well. You've got reading lights, his and hers reading lights. You've even got room possibly for a little child to sleep in between you if that was what you wanted. You can also remove one or both of these centre cushions if you wanted to use this space for reading material, drinks, whatever, while you're in bed. What you can't do though, sit up in bed. Why do they put lockers along the back wall of nearly every single bed motorhome that I look at? If they put them down the sides instead of these shelves, oh, hey-ho. I'm not a motorhome designer, but that is one thing that baffles me time and time again. What I do like is that you can, although the beds are high above a big garage, you can still sit on the beds. There's enough headroom for me, and the steps are quite easy. There's just a couple of steps up into the bedroom area. That's good as well. And then if you want an even bigger bed, this is very easy, very straightforward. You just slide this panel back, add an infill cushion, and now, unless you're very, very athletic, you'll need the ladder. Up you go. And now you can sleep either way round. It's longer, of course, across the vehicle, 2.13 metres across and 186 wide. That's bigger than a domestic super king size. Wow. And, well, what a big bed. But still, you can't sit up because now you've got these shelves in the way. Oh. Now, being an A-class, of course, the beds at the back aren't your only sleeping space. You've also got the drop-down bed in the cab. Now, it's easiest if you get the front seats out of the way by pointing them forwards and tipping the backrests. Well, the backrests have to go flat. On this type of seat, these agouti seats, they've got handles on either side, so that's convenient. You also, rather than often, you get a seatbelt strap. On this Carado, it's just a simple catch, slide that across and pull, and the bed comes down. Now, the important thing to note is that when it comes down, it actually locks in place. There's no wobble, no shake. If you're an energetic sleeper, you roll around a lot and annoy your partner, then you won't be shaking this bed. Nor will you be short of space, because this bed is 1.97 metres long by 1.48 wide. What a good sized bed that is for a drop down. You've got privacy curtain, a little pocket, I don't know what you're going to keep in there, but a little pocket. Just this one light, so you're going to have to share that. No proper reading lights, unfortunately, but you have got a roof vent, so if you're camping somewhere hot and sunny, hopefully, then you'll need that. And hooray, hooray, you can sit up in bed. What a good A-class bed this is. Now, one thing I should say is that when I raised this bed yesterday with my bedding on it, I was having a little bit of trouble getting it to latch, but then generally the latching mechanism on this particular example seems to need a little bit of adjustment. I don't think you'll be able to keep pillows up here, but you might be able to keep a thin duvet. That's something you'd need to check out once the bed mechanism on this one has been adjusted. I had a good drive in this Carado yesterday when I took it out to do the photography for the printed version of this report in MMM magazine. Now, it's of course the very latest Series 8 Fiat Ducato, like nearly every other A-class motorhome in its size category and price category. That means you get this new steering wheel, you get the electric power steering. Now, new manual gearbox is standard, although there is the 9-speed auto option. 140 bhp engine, which seemed to get us along quite nicely, but of course there was just me on board and not a lot of stuff, just for camera gear and all that sort of thing. Carado have updated the interior to go with the new Fiat cab, so this new dashboard moulding looks much better. The old one had lots of screw fixings adjoining the Carado dashboard with the original Fiat one, so that looked a bit messy. This looks much, much neater, and it's all black too, so it's got a nice automotive finish. One thing I did notice is that, unlike some A-classes, I very quickly became at home driving this. Of course, with an A-class, you've got that massive windscreen, so great view forwards, or usually. Sometimes the view of things quite close is very limited, but that's okay in this vehicle. Good mirrors, and of course, like any A-class, it's the same width all the way along the vehicle, so you haven't got that feeling of, well, you're sitting in a cab that's this width, but actually the body is that width, which you get with a normal coach-built motorhome. What else have they changed? Well, Carado have added this new cupboard alongside here. It just drops out and you've got room for maps or whatever you want in there. Down here you've got a new tray as well, bottle holder and all that sort of thing, so a bit more storage. Of course, you've got the cab door on the passenger side. In terms of spec, you get cab air conditioning, cruise control, ESP with traction plus, stop start, but what you don't get is any form of radio, sat nav or even a reversing camera, so you will need to budget to add that into the price. Negotiate with your dealer, of course. On the road, being 7 metres, it felt quite manoeuvrable, certainly compared with bigger A-class motorhomes. I was pleased that there wasn't a lot of conversion noise from the living area behind me. Carado seemed to have nailed the build quality. What they didn't get quite so right is engine noise, which was a little bit more intrusive than I would have hoped. But all round, as a driving experience, pretty good. And another thing that you should always check when you're looking at an A-class motorhome is windscreen wiper coverage. Yesterday it was pretty wet and the 2 wipers. Some A classes have 3, but here it's 2. They are set up for right-hand drive. Again, not all of them are. Even on right-hand drive UK vehicles, it's possible to find windscreen wipers that are still set up for left-hand drive. These wipers do a reasonable job of covering the screen. Not perfect. There are some unswept areas, but they do a pretty good job. And the other thing is that these A posts are not too intrusive. Sometimes the A pillars and the mirrors can create big blind spots when you're driving an A class, so that's another thing to look at. Again, here it's all good. So, happy birthday to Carado. After 15 years on the market, they've really established themselves as a manufacturer of solid, no-nonsense motorhomes. And this i338 Edition15 just carries on in that tradition. It seems solidly made, it's practical, it's generally well designed. Yes, I'd like a bit more underbonnet soundproofing. I'd like central locking to be on the habitation door as well as the cab door. And I'd like this fridge to be hinged the other way around. But those are details. This is a motorhome that works well, and with the good bedrooms, front and rear, and Isofix, I could really see this being a practical family motorhome. Practical too from the point of view of pricing. 72 grand is obviously a lot of money, but in this day and age, for an A-class, it actually represents remarkably good value, especially as this Edition 15 comes with a higher spec than the standard i338. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Plenty more coming along of all different sizes of camper vans, motorhomes, and even A-class luxury models. If you want to look at a completely different style of A-Class, why not take a look at the Rapido 854F that we reviewed recently? That's a very different animal to this one. And finally, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.